And we're back on 2nd Street talking about Ottawa's financial situation and ways that the federal government could be much more cost effective. We're chatting with Franco Terrazzano from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Franco, you just gave us a whole bunch of jaw-dropping examples, to say the least. Prime Minister Trudeau, he's gone. They've got a new leader. Obviously, the Conservatives are vying for power, so the NDP in every party. But isn't there an argument to be made that any party could put forward a private member's bill or a motion or something to do something about these examples that you've raised? Like, are we seeing any MP try and cut back on things like the Governor General's budget, the golden pensions that MPs get, the pay raises, all these types of examples? Is anyone trying to push back?
Well, you're absolutely right that I think all parties, politicians from all parties, have explaining to do for taxpayers, right? Because you mentioned a couple steps, whether it's working through committee, whether it's a private member's bill, or how about just speaking out publicly, right? That would raise a big spotlight on these issues. And let me just say that I haven't seen a single member of parliament from a single political party forcefully speak out against the MP pay raises that we've seen over the last number of years. So I'm glad you bring that up, because any party can make a difference here by speaking out and being a champion for the taxpayer.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about, like I was alluding to, some of the meatier examples of ineffective spending in Ottawa, where we could save hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. What have you got on your list in terms of some things that Ottawa could stop spending money on and, like I say, wouldn't affect John and Jane public out there?
Well, the number one thing is the federal bureaucracy. And the reason I say that is because about half of the government's day-to-day spending is now consumed by the bureaucracy. And we've seen the cost of the bureaucracy spiral out of control in recent years, okay? So if you look back to 2015, well, the government has added about 108,000 extra government bureaucrats, right? But you're not just paying for more bureaucrats, you're paying for more bureaucrats taking bigger taxpayer-funded salaries and bonuses. So the cost of the bureaucracy has actually gone up 73% since 2016. And Colin, I think it's a pretty safe bet that if you ask Canadians, they will say there is no way they're getting anywhere close to 73% better services from the federal government. And let me just give you some cost savings right there. So if the size of the bureaucracy had just kept pace with population growth, you'd have about 72,000 federal bureaucrats today. And with the average compensation for a federal bureaucrat being $125,000, you're looking at about savings for taxpayers of about $9 billion every single year.
All right, that's a big number. We're trying to get 60 billion or so. There's 9 off the hop. What about just, Franco, beyond, I appreciate what you've done with those numbers, but are there any programs where just simply you look at it and you say, hey, Ottawa doesn't need to be spending money on this?
Yeah, so I think the first step is identifying either departments or crown corporations that taxpayers shouldn't be on the hook for. And I think number one is get the government out of the business of business. I'm going to give you 3 examples of crown corporations that should be left to the private sector. Number one, the CBC. It's costing taxpayers about $1.4 billion every year, yet we've already seen government proposals proposing to nearly double that funding to about $2.5 billion a year. Here's the thing. We have so many media organizations in Canada. Look what you and I are doing right now. You don't need the CBC being funded by the taxpayer. Number 2, Via Rail, the government's train corporation, okay? In the last, 5 years or so, Via Rail has lost about $1.8 billion just in operating losses. Then there's also Canada Post. You're looking at more than $1 billion in losses over the last couple years, signaling that they may lose even more money in future years. So those are a couple examples of where we should be getting the government out of the business of business.
What about other examples of day-to-day spending, things where, maybe, we see a lot of examples of Ottawa handing out cash to different groups. Are there examples there where you think maybe we don't need to be doing that?
Well, if you're referring to equalization, for example, look, like that is a place that we should be scaling back for sure. In fact, the CTF has recommended phasing out the program over about a 20-year period, because not only does it hurt taxpayers in places like Alberta who pay into it but don't get money back, but it also creates a perverse incentive for provinces that receive the money, because then they rely more on tax dollars from other provinces and less on good policies to grow their economy.